Welcome in to OutKick the show. I am your fearless leader, Clay Travis. I hope that all of you are having a fabulous Thursday. Many of you getting ready to be on the road for the Memorial Day weekend. I hope that you will have fabulous long weekends. I'll be with Clay and Buck tomorrow. Do not think I will be on this program unless something truly insane happens. And then we'll be into the week. My kids are all out of school. And today is their final day of school, so that's a joyful day in the Travis household. I was asking this question on social media. I think it's a fun one. Is there an adult day that is better in terms of the feeling than the last day of the school year feeling that you have in the event that you are getting out for the whole school year? I'm not sure that there is one. Because I don't know that you ever have maybe it's retirement. I don't know. I'm hoping not to experience that for some time, where suddenly you have no real larger obligations. You can just do whatever you want. Anyway, that's the way I always felt on the end of the school day. But I want to tell you, Prize Picks, America's #1 daily fantasy sports app. With Prize Picks, you against the number. Last night's game, Pacers come back from a massive deficit. Got a couple of crazy stats on exactly how wild that was. We got the NHL playoffs underway. We got Major League Baseball. All you have to do is pick you more or less on your favorite athletes when it comes to how they're going to perform in any sport under the sun. Golf, tennis, baseball, basketball, football, and hockey going on right now. Whatever you want to do, you can turn your picks of athletes that you know well into an opportunity to win quite a lot of money. All you have to do is pick 2 or more athletes, and you can win up to 1,000 or even 2,000 times your overall dollars that you put into the apps. You can play in California. You can play in Texas. You can play in Georgia. 30 states, 13 million people have downloaded. When you use code OutKick, you get $50 when you play $5. That is, use code OutKick. You get $50 when you play $5. Download the app today and get hooked up by using the code OutKick for $50. Prize Picks, run your game. Okay, this is just breaking news that has come down, I think, in the last half hour or so. The college football playoff has modified the 12-team playoff in a way that is, frankly, very smart. And they should have done this last year. And this year they are going, this meaning this year coming up, the 2025 playoff season, they are going to just take simply the 12 best teams seeded 1 to 12. So instead of you needing to win a conference to get an automatic playoff bye, they're just going to take the top 4 teams. And this would have substantially altered what the playoff would have looked like if they had done this simply 1 year before. And in particular, if you run through and you're like, okay, what would this have looked like? Instead of Arizona State getting a bye into the Final Four, and was it Boise State, I believe? Boise State, I can't even remember what the top 4 looked like. But it did not look like it should have looked. And so I have it, if it had been straight seeding, Oregon would have still been the #1 overall seed. Georgia would have still been the overall #2 seed. Nothing would have changed there. But then your 3 would have been Texas, and your 4 would have been Penn State. So 2 Big Ten and 2 SEC teams would have gotten a bye into the quarterfinals. Then your matchups would have been Notre Dame against Clemson. Okay, that would have been a heck of a game. Notre Dame would have hosted that game. Ohio State would have hosted a game against Arizona State, and that would have been a fabulous game. Indiana would have hosted a game against SMU and, against Boise State as the 9 seed. That would have been the 8-9 game. And Tennessee would have hosted a playoff game against SMU. And then Tennessee or SMU would have been slotted. You can see the graphic that I put out up on social media. The big beneficiary, I think, would have been Oregon, who instead of being slotted to play against your 8 seed, Ohio State, would have gotten to play Indiana or Boise State. and I think Oregon would have comfortably won that game. Penn State would have then been on the road against probably, I think Notre Dame would have won that game. And so Penn State would have had to play against Notre Dame in the round of 8. I think that Notre Dame probably would have won that game based on what we saw. Those are a very even game between those two. Georgia, I believe, would have faced Tennessee. Given that Tennessee is never able to beat Georgia right now, I would have taken Georgia to win that game. Although, remember, Georgia had the serious injury to Carson Beck, which severely diminished their offensive firepower in the postseason. So that would have potentially played itself out differently. But I do think Tennessee would have beaten SMU in Knoxville. And then Texas would have gone up against Ohio State, that I think would have handled Arizona State quite well. So you would have had Georgia, Tennessee, Texas, Ohio State, Penn State, Notre Dame, and Oregon against, I think Indiana would have won that game, I think. Anyway, it would have been far better. And so now they are going to say, okay, top 4 teams get buys. We're going to directly seed still 5, 6, 7, and 8, get to host home playoff games. But this is a massive improvement. I give credit to college football for acknowledging that it made no sense the way they did year 1. You should take the 4 best teams and give them the playoff buys. And that's what they're going to do. So credit to the college football playoff. Next year, meaning not this year, 2026, Adam, you can correct me if I'm wrong, the expectation is that they will expand to either 14 or 16 teams. My argument would be take the top 14 or take the top 16 in order, in the same way. Don't overcomplicate this. I don't even think they need to include a non-Power 4 conference team, because if you can't make, starting in the 2026 year, if you can't make the top 14 or the top 16, why should you make the playoff? They should just take the top 14 or 16 teams. The 12-teamer will start this fall, but next year will come an expansion of the college football playoff. Again, they're going to take teams 1 to 12. It's a massive improvement going forward and is a better result. Okay, so that news has just broken. If you're a college football fan like I am, that is much better than the solution that they put in place this year. I'm in favor of a playoff. I understand some of you out there don't see the point of a playoff and don't see the point of expanding the playoff. I would just go straight 16. And if you told me, hey, Clay, you have a magic wand, I would eliminate the conference championship games. Because I don't think the conference championship games matter at all the bigger the playoff gets. And you're actually disincentivizing teams to play in the conference championship, because I'm afraid the conference championship games are going to become a bit like what happens in the NCAA tournament, where nobody really cares. If you told any college basketball fan, hey, you have a choice, your team can make the Final Four or the Elite Eight guaranteed, or you can win the regular season championship in your conference, every college basketball fan in America would say, okay, I'll take the Elite Eight or the Final Four guaranteed. And a lot of you would probably take the Sweet 16 guaranteed, because you'd be like, I don't really care. I mean, it's nice to win a conference championship, but we define college basketball success by how the postseason goes, which is not necessarily fair, because the regular season matters a great deal in terms of seeding and everything else. But ultimately, all that matters is the tournament. The bigger the playoff becomes, the less the regular season is going to matter. That's just the reality. And so getting your team beat up, the Carson Beck example is a great one. Guy has to play in an incredibly physical game against Texas, gets knocked out for the rest of the season in a game that wouldn't have mattered that much. Now that Georgia got the bye because they won the SEC championship, but going forward, if you're one of the top 2 in the SEC, the chances are going to be pretty good, I think, that you're going to be one of the top 4 in the country. So you're talking about the difference between being seeded 1 or 4 I don't think people are going to care that much. And so I would do away with conference championship games. They're worth too much money, so it's not going to happen. But I think going forward, when you're talking about 4 or 5 SEC or Big Ten teams getting into the playoff, honestly, I think a lot of fan bases would rather not even go to the conference championship game and get to host a home playoff game in the first round. Don't a lot of you think that that would be preferable? Hey, your team can go to the conference championship game. They may or may not win it. Or you can guaranteed host a home playoff game in the first round. I think a lot of you would rather host the home playoff game in the first round. Of course, this is the flaw of using the bowls. I've been on this for a long time. Most people can't afford to follow their team all over the country. They just can't. Because if your team has to go on the road the first week, you're talking about going on the road like 4 times between middle of December over the holiday season with Christmas and New Year's going on, and you're having to travel all over the country. And that is just not a very easy thing to do for most people. And so I think that factors in, unfortunately, and prices a lot of people out. That's why I would rather have the NFL model. Let the bigger, higher-seeded team, the better regular season team, host a home playoff game all the way up to the championship game. You know, if the NFL does it, it's probably not a bad idea. The NFL is the most successful American sports league in the history of the nation. If they have set back and said, hey, you know what, let's play the regular season, let's seed our teams all the way up to the NCAA champion, the Super Bowl, we're going to have everything on the better, higher-seeded team's home field. And then we'll award the Super Bowl to a neutral site every year. I don't know why college football wouldn't do that. And if that's too much, then I would only play the final 4 games, right, the semifinal games, on neutral site fields, and then the championship game too, and otherwise keep everything on campus. But that's if you gave me a magic wand and I was able to adjust it accordingly. By the way, the big, beautiful bill that I told you was going to pass the House and is going to pass the Senate too. There's always lots of drama because there's lots of reporters who make a substantial amount of money and they have to file lots of different stories about the nuts and bolts of where this is going. I told you it's like the debt ceiling. It creates a lot of drama, and we know exactly how it's going to end. And so this is, to me, not even a challenging dynamic if you break down how all of this is going to go. The big, beautiful bill is going to, it already now has cleared the House. It's going to clear the Senate. And the bigger challenge going forward, and this is whether you're a Democrat, Republican, or independent, is everybody just wants to pretend that we don't have a $36 trillion national debt and that it's not going to grow. And the reality is it's going to continue to grow because of Social Security and Medicare. And the debt on the national debt is almost impossible to cut. And we already, what am I paying, 37% federal income taxes? Half the people who live in America don't pay federal income taxes at all. And so there's a limited amount that people like me can be taxed because there's not that many of us. And I said it, I tweeted it. My lifestyle is not very different compared to if I pay a 37 or 39% tax. Both of them are insanely too high. I've been arguing for a long time, even before I had money, that the tax code is broken and we should have a simple flat tax that everybody can understand. My tax returns now, and I've gotten audited and everything else, my tax returns are so complicated that if I gave my tax, all my information, which is what I do, just kind of said, hey, here are all of my information, you figure out what I have to pay. If I did that with 10 different attorneys, 10 different top accountants in the nation, all 10 of them would come up with a different dollar figure that I owe. And how does this make sense? I'm a reasonably intelligent person. My taxes are so complicated, I don't even know how to do them. Does that make sense? Or do you think that we should all have a system that everybody understands, that you could file on a postcard and you just pay, I don't know, 12, 13% of your overall income to the federal government across the board. Everybody understands it. And that to me seems like the system that should apply, as opposed to the tax code being basically a big collection of self-interested giveaways that are somewhat arbitrary in the way that they are applied. It just doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't seem like an efficient way to run a government in a rational fashion. And the result is we're going to be $50 trillion in debt soon. The Tea Party started when we were $10 trillion in debt. And everybody in politics wants to engage in magical thinking, and that is that nothing has to be done because they don't want to touch the third rail of Social Security or Medicare. And at some point, adults have to look at the budget and say, hey, this is untenable. We're already spending more money on our interest than we are on our national defense. There is a theory out there, way more intelligent economists than me, that as soon as your country begins to spend more money on net debt than they do yearly interest on national defense, your country has begun an inexorable decline. That's by looking at the history of different governments and of different economies over time. We're there now. And so we need to reverse the debt. To his credit, back in the day, Bill Clinton, working with a Republican Congress, created budget surpluses that looked like they were going to continue long into the future. And then 9/11 happened, and George W. Bush came into office, and we spent trillions of dollars fighting a war in Iraq we never should have been fighting, and everything surrounding the government collapsed. And look, I give credit to Elon Musk for trying to address it. Trump tried to address it, but no politician wants to make a decision that could put his or her job in jeopardy and actually behave like an adult and look at the budget and make a rational one. So I hope, fingers crossed, that the economic growth unleashed by lower tax rates, which does happen, leads to higher gross tax revenue and a faster overall growing economy, which would mean that the tax cut would pay for itself and actually begin to lead to a balanced budget in the next couple of years ahead. Basically, the idea is if we can get the economy growing at a rate of 3% or more per year, then the growth of the overall economy covers the cost of the tax cut and balances the budget in the years ahead. Fingers crossed that can happen. I would love to see the economy roaring and the budget balanced and us actually able to run a budget surplus and start to pay down this massive national debt. Pacers. I was watching this game a little bit last night. About 2.5 minutes to go, I just turned it off. I stopped looking. I was like, Pacers are going to lose. Knicks have got this game. And I went and dove into the math, and I didn't even notice till I got the alert. And I'll talk about this, sadly, in a moment, about the murder of 2 innocent Jewish people in Washington, D.C. But until my phone buzzed with that alert from the Wall Street Journal, I hadn't even bothered getting back on my phone. I was reading the Slow House, the Mick Herron, amazing British spy novels that I absolutely love. I just turned off the NBA. I thought it was over. I still sometimes watch NBA playoff games, even though huge majorities of you do not. But this stat is out there. Before tonight, teams leading by 9+ with a minute left were 1,434-0 in NBA playoff games. That is according to the OddsShark guys. Speaking of gambling odds, Bet Online, after I put up a poll asking whether you thought Bill Belichick would win an ACC title or have another baby with his 24-year-old girlfriend, 80% of you said you thought that Belichick was more likely to have a new baby than he was to win the ACC. Bet Online put up a betting odds market. What will happen first? UNC wins the ACC with Belichick as head coach, plus 250. Jordan Hudson gets pregnant from Bill Belichick, minus 400 on the what will happen first. They also have a bet, what will be higher, UNC's total wins in 2025 or a potential Belichick-Hudson baby weight, minus 250. The baby weight is the favorite. Very funny stuff that is out there. Okay, a couple of other stories. This is a positive. I think it speaks to a rational marketplace adjusting their behavior. Right now, you have got Fox News. This is a study that I saw, data that I saw come out. Fox News is now outdrawing CNN and MSNBC combined 2-1. How wild is that? Fox News, with 2 out of every 3 news viewers now on television, with CNN and MSNBC combined only posting 1/3. In other words, Fox News is doubling the other 2 networks combined. If there were 100 people watching, 66 of them would be watching Fox News. 33 of them would be watching MSNBC or CNN combined, and 1 person probably would be watching someone else. That is pretty extraordinary. I have got a long-form piece up on Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese, and how woke sports people like Ryan Clark are morons. If some of you miss me writing long-form, well, guess what? I've got a new book coming out in November. But in the meantime, I have got several thousand words. I will share it from my Twitter account that you guys can go read, talking about how a WNBA foul has broken the brain of many different people who work in sports media. So that article is up. I would encourage you to check it out. It's on the front page of OutKick.com, and you can also click on it on my name at Clay Travis. A couple of other things. I am going to be at the Indy 500 this weekend. I have never been. Sunday, I will be up in Indianapolis. I cannot wait. I am told that it is an incredible experience. I will be up there with one of our advertisers, Good Ranchers. Fox Sports also has the Indy 500, so I'll be around a lot of those events as well that Fox has got going on. I'm looking forward to it. I have never been to the Indy 500. I asked you guys what to expect. You did not disappoint in your analysis and your sharing of a huge variety of different topics associated with that. So that should be a lot of fun, and I can't wait to make the trip up to Indianapolis on Saturday for that race on Sunday. So that is what I am doing for Memorial Day weekend. Last thing before the show is over here. You guys know I went to school in Washington, D.C. I will be up in Washington, D.C. for a couple of weeks with my son, and he's doing an internship. I'll be up there in June for a couple of weeks. I went to college there, spent 4 years in D.C. I love the city. I love the town. Unfortunately, my alma mater, where I went undergrad, George Washington University, I went there. They gave me a scholarship, took all my AP credits. I graduated in 3 years. So that's why I ended up there, and I enjoyed my time in D.C. They had a huge protest on the central quad of campus. GW has a huge Jewish population. That's why it was stunning to me that George Washington University's central campus quad was taken over by pro-Hamas, pro-Palestinian protesters. And they even put the keffiyeh on the George Washington statue. It was weeks that the protest was going on. Eventually, they arrested people, and I think they have not started back up. But late last night, when my phone buzzed, and I got the alert from the Wall Street Journal that 2 young Jewish people had been murdered and that the killer had chanted free Palestine on video, making it clear that he had killed those two young, innocent Jewish people because of his belief that Israel was the aggressor. It was incredibly troubling to me because it reflected that many young people in America, it's not just young people, but many young people in America on the left and some on the right, and to be fair, it is people of all ages, have become such profound anti-Semites that they have lost the ability to distinguish between good and evil. I went to Israel in December, and I toured all of the different locations where 1,200 innocent Jewish people were murdered. And as I saw this awful, horrible terror attack, I couldn't help but think all those stupid American college kids chanting, globalize the Intifada, free Palestine. That is what happens when you globalize the Intifada. You have innocent people walking on the street in Washington, D.C. who are murdered because of their ethnicity. It's evil, okay? If you kill anyone, you are evil. But if you can't distinguish between good and evil, let me give you a little bit of an indication. The side that's killing innocent people because of their ethnicity is the evil one. And let me sum this up. If you've got kids or grandkids, or maybe you're a college kid yourself and you're watching me and you don't understand. Maybe you're watching on YouTube. We're 1.7 million subscribers there. Maybe you're watching me on TikTok. Maybe you're watching me on Instagram. Maybe you're watching me on Twitter. We're everywhere. If every Jewish person put down their weapons in Israel today, Israel would not exist within a few days, because all of the people that hate Israel in the Middle East would do what happened on October 7th to them. They would show up and murder them. They would wipe every Jewish person off the map in Israel. That is why every 18-year-old in Israel just about joins the IDF. When I was over there, the same kids, and I say kids because if you're 18 to me, you're still kind of a kid, the same kids that would otherwise be in fraternities or sororities on many of our American college campuses instead have AK-47s or ARs on their back everywhere they walk in the entire country. You can go to get a coffee and 18-year-old girls with long guns on their backs are standing in line beside you. The same girls that otherwise would be doing sorority TikToks at the University of Alabama or the University of Florida. They're there, and the same guys that would otherwise be playing intramurals and doing keg stands at fraternity parties or football game tailgates are walking around with guns in their hands. Because if everyone didn't do their part to protect Israel, they would all be murdered. The country would no longer exist. So if Jewish people put their weapons down, Israel would no longer exist, and every Jewish person within a matter of days or weeks would be murdered or forced to flee Israel. If alternatively, Middle Eastern countries, everyone else, everyone in Gaza put down their guns. Everyone in Lebanon put down their guns. Everyone in Iran put down their guns. There'd be peace in the Middle East because Israel would no longer need to fight. So the side that is causing war is the one that forces the Israelis to keep the weapons in their hands. The Israelis are not the side causing war. Second, and I just want you to think about this. I toured the kibbutzes. I toured the Nova Music Festival. I toured everywhere where the 1,200 people were murdered in cold blood in Israel on October 7, 2023. And on that tour, what I found was so unbelievably difficult to see, but I wanted to make sure that I shared it all with you. Young babies, brains dashed, women raped, hundreds of people taken prisoner, many of whom hopefully are still alive but still being held prisoner, including many Americans. And it was awful. But when I came back, I couldn't stop thinking about it. And a lot of people are saying, well, why has Israel responded? Well, Israel's killed a lot of people too. It's true. That's what happens in war. But I said, imagine what the reaction in America would have been if a group in Mexico had come across our border, killed 1,200 Americans, taken hundreds of Americans captive, and gone back into Mexico and said, hey, don't attack us. Let's have a ceasefire. We would have rained down holy hell on the part of Mexico that was responsible for that terror attack. And because if they did what Hamas did, which is hide many of their military operations under hospitals and under schools and under apartment buildings, there would be people who were not parts of Hamas that would have been killed. There would have been parts of the group in Mexico that were killed too. That unfortunately would have been collateral damage to the response of the terror attack. Well, we did that after 9/11, except October 7th was far deadlier to the Jewish people, the deadliest day for Jewish people since the Holocaust. And after 9/11, we rained down holy hell on the Taliban because they wouldn't turn back over al-Qaeda and the al-Qaeda militants, the terrorists who had attacked us on 9/11. There were not terrorists taken then, but you kind of have a rough historical analogy to what we did in that situation and how we responded. What Israel is doing is what the United States would do if we were attacked by some group in Mexico across our southern border, and it is what we did in the wake of 9/11. Good and evil exist. Hamas is firmly on the side of evil, and Israel is firmly on the side of good. So I appreciate all of you. I hope you have fabulous Memorial Day weekends. I hope you take the time to think about the people that have given their lives so that you have the freedom to be able to experience the joy and the fun of the official, in many ways, kickoff of summer weekend. I love all of you. DBAP, unless you need to SBAP, I'll be solo tomorrow with Clay and Buck. If something crazy happens news-wise, I may be back with you on OutKick. Otherwise, I will see you next week after the Memorial Day holiday. Appreciate all of you. Thanks for hanging with me. And this is OutKick, the show.